Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my Spyro Reignited Trilogy perspective. Now, I have this Xbox, but I played through it on PC. And this is pretty much the original games remastered. Spyro the original, Spyro the Dragon, Spyro Ripto's Rage. Let me see. Yeah. And Spyro Year the Dragon. That's weird. Spyro the Dragon, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, and Spyro Year the Dragon. Ugh. I had not played these before and was interested to see how they were as platformers. It does get a little bit gnarly on certain kind of boss fights, mainly in the second one, and how you kind of control it. I flipped back and forth between certain kind of ones of an Xbox controller and keyboard and mouse. Sometimes it felt like one was more responsive to the other, depending upon which kind of game I was playing on, but I finished it more out doing keyboard at the end. Also, it's me trying to figure out how to kind of do it, because I try and play it more in my bed for what's kind of going on to kind of differentiate workspace computer mode versus game-space computer mode. So trying to figure out, now I've got USB extenders for the keyboard and mouse. It's just figuring out how to kind of be able to do it on there. I know there's like a Couchmaster kind of thing, but it's kind of like I'm looking into options. So those are things that kind of had issues with what's going on. But it's they're very interesting platformers. Flying around as Spyro, doing a kind of tackle kind of thing, bursting with fire. Even throughout most of the three games, you pretty much go around collecting gems and such, eggs, other kind of various items, and blasting or hitting different kind of enemies. Certain enemies you cannot tackle, certain enemies you cannot flame, so you do have to go through and figure out tactically what to do. Most of these I would recommend for kids to kind of get into and whatnot. It's kind of like Mario, where you can start them off on certain kind of things, but you have to be very careful on what you're kind of showing them for, because certain kids will get very frustrated, because I had frustrations on boss battles of trying to deal with and figure out how to kind of fuck around with these ones. Like, God, who was it in the second one? It gave me kind of fucking damn Dark Souls kind of flashbacks. Gulp? Ugh. But let's hit it off first. The first one deals with Nork? Nasty Nork. So, the dragons are pretty much like bad-mouthing his ass, and he pretty much makes this spell to turn him into crystals. So, Spyro has to go through, unlock the dragons, get them back up, just pretty much going around the levels and doing that. It really isn't that much involved, and then you are able to then do your boss battle against Nork, which kind of sucks checkpointing-wise. That's a kind of thing that you have to watch out for. Little less in the second one, little less in the third one, where this one you're like, I have to do this boss battle all over again. Fuck you! But that's pretty much it. You go through, you do your collection, you hit your certain kind of checkpoints, and then you move on. So it's not really that kind of deeper involved. Thing is that I understand that it's aimed more towards a younger kind of audience, but it gets to a certain kind of point, like, I'm doing the same things over and over again, so you don't have to keep reiterating it like it's the first kind of tutorial. I understand that this is being aimed at, like, everyone 10 plus kind of thing. It's just, okay, let's kind of get a little bit more kind of story kind of content in here. And I think that works out more within, like, Ripto's, in the Ripto, Ripto's Rage and Year of the Dragon, where we actually get kind of more of a kind of plot. So Spyro is pretty much trying to go onto a vacation and instead get sucked into this other world by this kind of crazy doctor dude, Alora the Fawn, Hunter the Cheetah, and the Professor. And they were pretty much trying to deal with this thing, and an angry iron-fisted warlock named Ripto, along with his minions Crush and Gulp. Crush. Fucker. So, this one, you still have the same kind of collection thing kind of going on, but it's a little bit more of a different kind of scenario. You actually have kind of more of a pressing kind of need. You're trying to kind of go through and get these mystical orbs to power different kind of portals, and you're pretty much trying to get Spyro back to his homeland. And they needed a dragon to fight this asshole, so that's pretty much what goes on. And you actually help the inhabitants this time around, instead of in the other one. This one starts kind of building more. You kind of understand the inhabitants of your different kind of world. You kind of get more kind of back and forth between them as you're kind of figuring out what's kind of going on with Ripto and what he's attempting to do here. And I really like that. It's like, oh, you're doing exactly what a sequel should be doing, getting you into that. So it doesn't really change that much with the gameplay dynamics. You still play it pretty much similarly to the first one, but in the first one, you pretty much are just getting the dragons out. It's like, oh, okay, rinse, repeat, get some eggs, so on and so forth. And those fuckers can be challenging to kind of chase down, so be careful with those. But even though this is kind of basic, it's pretty well executed. And these sequels up that by getting more in-depth kind of stories. Now, not really giant, complex ones where you have to try and figure out what the fuck the Lalilulelo is in Metal Gear Solid or whatnot, but enough to even be like, okay, cool, we're not just getting tutorialized over and over again, we're actually getting kind of character moments, lore building, world building, what's kind of going on around here. It's like, okay, cool. So, the main three bosses, we've got Gulp, Crush, and Ripto. They do get... the boss battles are more annoying and harder in this second one. So if you decide to go and set this up for your kids, understand that that is going to be the one that's going to set them a little bit off, and be prepared for it. Because some of them are like, ooh, you son of a bitch. Also like the Ripto one where that's got different kind of phases as well. They do have interesting kind of mechanics in that last one where you have to go and like get these kind of power-up orbs to then effectively fight Ripto, and then you're in this last one where you're flying around and like shooting shit to make sure that he fucking gets his ass kicked. Yes, I understand that I'm talking about a kid's game and cursing like a fucking sailor, but it's how I kind of roll. I kind of like to express myself with certain kind of things on this, and that's how I kind of like to do it. So, yes, I understand that this is for kids, and those bosses can eat a fucking asshole. So, they weren't like completely and utterly Dark Souls, I will take your ass out with a fucking giant's dildo's worth of like quarters up the asshole to spread you wide and make you cry kind of shit. But it's the balancing of what's kind of going on here. Because certain kind of things are like, what are you trying to do? Even trying to figure out the pattern, you're like, alright, I got the pattern. But certain execution styles of like, how do I fucking dodge you? Now, that also comes into play of the different kind of control methods. If you've got mouse and keyboard, hopefully you're good on what's going on with making sure that the mouse is able to have the camera where you need it, or the controller. Be careful on that shit. But that's where it kind of built up, and you're like, alright, cool, where's kind of going on with this? So we get Hunter kind of bringing in, and then we get the Year of the Dragon. This one, I think is the kind of best one, even though it gets more into the mini-games kind of aspect. We see that all of the dragon eggs have been stolen. By the sorceress's apprentice, Bianca, and because they need it for their magic in their realm. So, Spyro Sparks and Hunter go through and try and recover all the eggs, and that's pretty much where you go through. And this was a land once inhabited by dragons, so you're like kind of going around. This one's a little bit kind of weird because you have to help these people out and then have to play through their kind of stuff to make sure that you get up all the way to all the objectives that you need to kind of finish out the game. You got Sheila the Kangaroo, Sergeant Bird the Penguin, Bentley the Yeti, and Agent 9 the Monkey, and you're kind of just going through. And the sorceress is trying to like get herself to be immortal. This one doesn't have as much of a Dark Souls kind of vibe to the kind of bosses. You do have to make sure that you are collecting enough gems to pay off the Moneybags asshole who was introduced in the second one. And then there's a nice little funny thing where you like blast his ass towards the end to get all your money back. But this was kind of more interesting, seeing Bianca trying to steal these eggs and then keep these eggs, but then learning that the sorceress is a dick, and then defecting and getting checked up with Hunter as Spyro's just trying to figure out what's kind of going on. So that was a pretty decent one. I normally you're like, okay, how is it kind of going to go? There's different kind of aspects and different kind of ones that like work in each kind of one's favor. The first one is nice for pretty much setting up all the kind of basics, but it is more of the most basic of the games. You don't really do much. You do have some kind of boss fights, but not really much. Second one kind of introduces that, gives us kind of more of the story aspect, but the boss battles do get kind of more intense. Third one I think has more of a kind of balanced kind of feel on all fronts, with the understanding of not trying to make it so that way a kid just gets completely and utterly turned off and is like, fuck this shit. But wanting to kind of like deal with the world and kind of interact with the world and learn how to platform. These are really good ones to teach platforming aspects to. Just make sure that you understand what's kind of going on for whatever kind of console you're picking it for. Controller console, PC, keyboard and mouse kind of thing. Because that completely changes up your kind of aspects of how you control it in your muscle memory. But I would definitely recommend these. I understand why the Spyro series is such a kind of beloved one, and looking into the platformers, I do wonder why they haven't done much else with the Spyro series. I mean, this came out in like 2018 or whatnot. Yeah. So we'll see what kind of goes. Hopefully they do some more in this series, take some different kind of approaches, potentially do the kind of franchise route where you've got the main platformers and then just kind of experiment with other kind of things, because who wouldn't want to play as a dragon or in dragon kind of worlds? There's a lot of different kind of things that they could do. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. But I would recommend it mainly on the strength of the gameplay, more so than the story and the characters, though the story and the characters take more of a have more of a presence in the second and the third games that I think you would be able to amp up and be like, yeah, this has a pretty decent story, pretty decent characters to kind of work through, and to give you some more extra motivation. So that is, those are my opinions on the trilogy. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.